Okay, we did it. We're live.
Evidently. Are we?
Evidently. It's what it tells me. All right. Hello, GitOpsians. Sorry for the late notice on the special time. I'm sure most people will catch the recording as they usually do anyway. We are here with distinguished architect Andy Block.
I'll
I
let you know
know.
when I find it. I'll let you know when I find him.
or his doppelganger at the very least.
There you go.
To talk about, we're basically just going to recap what we talked about at Argocon EU, right?
Yeah. Can't believe it's already been, what, 2 weeks already? 3 weeks? 3 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. Well, I mean, you travel all the time, so it's probably different for you. But for someone like me who only travels like once a year, it's like kind of feels like a dream. Like it's a thing that didn't really happen because I slipped right back into my normal life so quickly that it's like I've been here the whole time. But your normal life is on the road, which is different.
I'm on the road right now.
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm at a Java conference called DevNexus. It takes me back to my roots. So I don't know if you know this or not, but I was a old school Java developer, middleware one when I joined Red Hat, and this allows me to get back to my roots. And I'm actually talking about a initiative within Red Hat that we've been working on around Ansible and automation of our middleware portfolio. So sharing how you can leverage Ansible to be able to manage your Java middleware.
Wow. Maybe we should talk about that on a different episode of GitOps Guide.
We can do that too, because remember, GitOps isn't always specific to Kubernetes.
It's very true. It's very true. In fact, my many first years in this space had nothing to do with Kubernetes, right? So I think that's true for everybody. All right. Well, unless you had anything else, there's no announcements. There's no other grand things I have in mind. If you don't have anything else, we can jump right into our slides.
Go for it. Well, slides about what? I mean, we mentioned slides. We should talk about slides. Oh my goodness, there was an Argocon recently, wasn't there?
There was, yes, there was an Argocon. We were there, I think. That's what they tell me anyway.
There's videos, so I think there's some proof in the pudding.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I was so jet lagged. Somebody told me it was great. So
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So we did this little talky thing. And Andrew, I'll let you do all of the important talking, and just like we did in Paris, I will just keep you on track and on time.
Sounds perfect.
All right. So unfortunately today we don't have Christian and Dan. Christian's traveling. Dan is celebrating what do you call it? The birth of a child, which is
kind of
exciting.
important. It's kind of important.
A little bit more important than being here with us today. So congratulations again, Dan. If you catch the recording, we're very happy for you. Andy, talk to us about this slide.
So, for those of you who are in the Argo world, which is a lot of people, especially in the OpenShift side of the things, there are two primary sources of content for Git. Git itself, Git repository, or a Helm chart. Helm chart can come from either a Git repository or it can come from a separate Helm repository, or it can actually come from an OCI registry as well. But I'm not going to go there for now. Two places. That's in a nutshell.
Next slide.
Beep.
There we go.
Now, certainly everyone has access to a Git or Helm repository, right? Right? What if you can't? So you might have some networking constraints. Maybe you have firewall rules in between where your Kubernetes OpenShift cluster might reside in Argo. Or you might have some organizational governance policies that says, hey, you need to have a separation of concerns between production and Git, which is in many cases, in many organizations, a development resource. So what does every Kubernetes cluster have access to? Boom, 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 boom. A container registry. Think about it. All your images for the cluster got to come from somewhere. And unless you've gone into every single one of your OpenShift nodes, configured it so that you package every single image in there, which you can do, especially if you're looking in the world of like microshift, running at the edge where you might want to pre-populate your local cache, you're mostly going to have to communicate with the external registry of some sort. So let's talk about OCI artifacts. So did you know, Hillary, before the talk, obviously we know now after we had the presentation, but did you know you can actually store content aside from images in OCI registries? Did you know that?
I didn't know it. It made sense once you said it, but I had never considered it.
So a feature that actually came into Helm about a year and a half ago in GA was a capability to, we mentioned earlier about storing your Helm charts in traditional Helm repositories. Helm can also store charts in OCI registries as OCI artifacts. There are many other different types of content as well. SBOMs, if we're talking about the secure software supply chain, WASM modules, etc. Those can all be now stored in container registries, which allows you to provide a single reference point for everything in your supply chain. Things from container images, your Helm charts, your assets. Did you know?
Well, if I didn't know before, I do now.
There you go. So as I mentioned, Helm charts have been supported since 1.8. And all you need to do in Argo land is just as you're adding a new repository, you just need to set a flag, the enable OCI flag to true. That'll basically turn on the ability to leverage the Helm chart repository. So kind of had them thinking like, it might make some sense to store more than just the Helm charts. Why don't we go ahead and we store all the manifests that you might need for an Argo application as an OCI artifact? This is going to be your standard raw, Kubernetes manifests, your customized manifests, even your Helm charts. If you want to just have Helm manifests or even the Helm content stored within a Git repository that would be normally stored in a Git repository, you can all package them up as an OCI artifact. And that's what this proposal really emphasized and tried to elaborate is, why don't we go ahead and we support sourcing content from an OCI artifact versus the other two more native sources?
I was trying to see if I have an easy way of pulling this up bigger. Hang on. Wow, yay, look. This is the proposal.
Hey, it actually exists more than just a screenshot, and it's in dark mode too. So we
is in dark mode.
We satisfied people who like light mode and dark mode all in one stream. Not bad.
Not bad. All right, so yeah, that's the proposal. Let me actually just sorry, switching back and forth between screens is a challenge. I'm gonna actually, just for folks who are interested, I'm going to put this in the put this link in the chat for the stream, so that everybody can, one, YouTube displays these later after the fact, and two, that way everybody can take a look if they're interested. And I also did see that this was merged, so you don't have to look at the PR. You can actually just look at it in its location on the main repo. But I don't have that link handy, so that's not what I'm sending. I'm sorry. You're welcome.
It's okay. It's okay. The good news is the PR has a link to it. So
yes, exactly.
It's like docs/proposal/ whatever the name of it happens to be.
I don't. Yeah. So, okay, moving on.
Yeah, so we can talk about, now we have a proposal out there. I mean, we actually have to do work now? Isn't it just, can I just go ahead and just get it done and it'll just magically appear? No, unfortunately, it's not that easy. So what are some of the ways that we need to, so opportunities for leveraging OCI artifacts in Argo CD? So number one, we need to develop a client. How do we actually talk to the registry itself? Now, Argo actually has capabilities for the chart, the Helm charts, using a tool called Auras. I'm actually a maintainer on the Auras project. Auras stands for OCI Registries as Storage. It's the ability to be able to communicate and interact with OCI artifacts and remote repositories. So there has to be some kind of way for Argo to talk to the remote registry, and then we would be able to create a client to be able to facilitate that interaction. We need to go ahead and probably change some metadata, some properties in the application manifest itself to provide some additional capabilities, as well as how the heck are we going to actually communicate to an OCI artifact repository. That's credentials, etc. Because it's going to be a little different, but still the same in how you would handle your Git content. There might be some webhook integration. So if you happen to be pushing a new artifact into a registry, if that registry has support for invoking a webhook, you might be able to call into Argo to say, hey, synchronize this application. And then finally, or second to last, use UI. I guess you might want to make it look pretty so folks can just do pointy and clicky functionality. And then finally, CLI integration. This is where I see a lot of individuals working with is the CLI integration that we'd be looking to add. How do I package up my content that might be in a Git repository or part of a CI pipeline, package it up, and then push that to a OCI artifact repository? So these are kind of the 4 key areas that are out there in Argo that we might be able to use for future opportunities for artifacts. So lots of great ways that we can expand the ecosystem. So if you want to get involved, a couple different ways to do it. Number one, there's a new enhancement request out there. It kind of builds upon the proposal that you saw earlier that Hillary shared, the GitHub issue on that. Number two, if you want to engage with the Argo CD community, obviously just get out there and engage with them. And then most importantly, if you're really interested in getting started, getting involved, saying, hey, I want to help, let's go, I'm here. Join the Slack channel on CNCF Slack, Argo-CD-OCI-integration. So those who are interested are starting to, post up there.
I'm like trying to type, but my keyboard and my microphone are so close together, so I'm pretty sure everybody's just getting the clickety clackety.
Oh, there's plenty of clickety clackety. You got a horse over there.
Yeah. Sorry, friends. I'm not fast with the mute and the everything. Normally I have Johnny here, and that's how I avoid being clicky clacky. Is that Johnny is in the background doing everything. Johnny's out on PTO right now though, so I have to be both myself and Johnny and his amazing background orchestrating capabilities. And let's just say there's a reason I asked Johnny to do these things.
Hey, we all have a purpose in life.
It's true. This one's not mine. That really does bring us to the end of our slides, doesn't it?
At least from the slides perspective, but you were more than just someone driving the slides. You asked a lot of questions. So that's where we're going to go ahead and we're going to build upon this is lay it on me.
Yeah, let me pull out my questions because I'm not a functional adult who has those things memorized as one would hope I were.
You at least wrote it down. That's pretty good. I mean,
have them written down. What I was sad as I didn't have is that our audience had some really excellent questions at Argocon, and I didn't, because of the nature of how we were, I wasn't able to take down their questions. I don't know if the recording will have the questions. I have found that sometimes those recordings from conferences actually cut off before the question and answer section.
I remember we also did somewhat intersplice it into the conversation, so they'd have a heck of a time trying to remove that from the recording. But yeah, usually they try to save the amount of after questions to just keep the stream tight.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, I wish I could remember some of those great questions. I don't have them. I do have mine written down. Right. So I think, this time we didn't cover it during the slides. Last time you did cover this on me during the slides. So, well, you kind of did. Can you expand more on the motivation for the feature request for working with, just to remind everybody, it's OCI artifacts in Argo?
Yeah, so I've developed a lot of workshops regarding Argo, and it's great. And many times I don't want to be dependent on an external source. So it'd be GitHub. I don't want to necessarily, tie myself to GitHub. Maybe I'm at a conference Wi-Fi and happen to stand up my own Kubernetes cluster and I'm going to run everything locally. Okay, then I have to go talk to GitHub. Or in most cases, I'm working with a customer and they don't allow access to direct GitHub. Or they have a corporate network and there's just no way to get there. So, okay, I need to figure out how am I going to go ahead now deploy another piece of infrastructure? Do I happen to be running on a more constrained device where I don't have the ability to even deploy an additional piece of infrastructure? So why don't we just go ahead and take the existing infrastructure we already have in place and just reuse it for a new purpose?
Yeah. And I think you also talked about earlier in the use cases, you talked about like edge computing.
Mm-hmm.
At least with my experience in edge computing, sometimes those devices are not consistently like an IoT server, for example, is not consistently connected to the internet and may connect only periodically. Which so Git is not going to be like a solid option for that. It can't have an ongoing connection.
And I do work with a lot of my customers who do work in either constrained environments or at the edge. And especially as you start thinking about these concepts in Kubernetes, you're kind of in the assumption that, oh, I'm either in a cloud provider, I'm in a data center. Well, as Kubernetes has gotten popular, we've gone outside the data center. How do we go ahead and try to align on their environment limitations to a lot of the patterns that we already have kind of developed in the cloud native space?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes that aligns with what my practical experience was in that field before I came over to Red Hat was kind of exactly that. I think we also see things. I don't know what you see. I've heard rumors from our colleagues over at IBM about running OpenShift on mainframes and reverse running mainframe operating systems on OpenShift. I'm sure that ends up with a functionally very similar situation where obviously you wouldn't just leave access like that open on a mainframe necessarily.
Right,
That's such an
exactly.
important piece of needs to be secure in so many ways.
Exactly.
So I see lots of potential for this, of course, obviously. So let's see. Right. So this brings us to, we see a lot of potential, but so what limitations do we see with Argo CD's existing content resources, which is, I think, similar?
It's similar because you are basically locked into either Git or a Helm repository. I'm not going to say it, but many customers that I have may not have Git. It's shocking, but Git may not exist.
I think even here at Red Hat, some of the RHEL teams still use Perforce.
Perforce, CVS, Subversion, you name it, they're all out there. So this also allows us to not break away, but allow for additional integrations, because they're going to most likely be using a container registry. Why not go ahead and use that? But you're not having to bolt on a Git server.
Yeah, and you don't actually have to build in all these additional, like, if the container registry, right, the OCI, like that is the point of convergence for all the things, because everything is going to build to that type of artifact, right? You don't have to do a special plugin for Argo CD and Perforce, a special Argo plugin for CVS, yes, Subversion. I can't acronym.
And not the pharmacy chain either.
And not the pharmacy chain either, no. And so, but my dyslexic brain for a second was like, wait, which order do these letters go in? So yeah, right. So the container image, right? The container registry becomes a point of convergence for every way of doing the thing that results in manifest that you want deployed on your Kubernetes.
You have a single source, and you don't necessarily have to have the same registry you source your container images, but you could. It just gives you one additional option that you can then start to leverage for managing your Git content. And you can also use the same security pattern that you might already enforce in Kubernetes. So you're really starting to not have two separate tools. You're starting to use the same tool, because you might have, okay, I have your Git source. It may have totally different users, different permission schemes. You may have a container side of things, but maybe you want to go ahead and we want to leverage a similar paradigm to be able to manage it more effectively. Put everyone inside the same organization or namespace within whatever container registry you have, and everything just works based upon that, instead of having to manage it two separate ways.
Yeah, I think that actually was really you keep doing this, which maybe is because you're familiar with the questions. You pre up my question, which is, so what are some of the other opportunities about that we get with OCI? And like you just kind of said, a new way of unifying the access management. Are there other opportunities?
I mean, you have just the ability to leverage every capability of container registry. I mentioned the webhook earlier, to be able to integrate with that. It isn't necessarily going to be a standard way, even though it's the same with container registry, or about doing webhooks from a Git repository. There's just so many different flavors of Git repositories out there. It's very difficult to be able to try to, especially if you're looking from the development point of Argo, try to support every single one, because every one, if you have like a webhook, it could have its own protocol with its own set of headers that it sends. I know GitLab sends separate headers based upon that. You're going to have the similar problems in OCI, but it makes it easier since you don't have to worry about, okay, OCI has one content, then you have Git, then you have et cetera, et cetera. Let's go ahead and let's just standardize on one different scheme.
So in case it's not apparently already obvious or something we haven't already said, why should this be exciting to people? I mean, I get excited over all kinds of, weird ways that you can do things and problems that this solves. But why should the average Argo CD user, maybe a little bit less of a nerd than either you or I, why should they be excited?
A lot of it comes down to I get to make less requests. I can go ahead and say, if I'm working in an enterprise org, or if I'm even setting up something in a cloud, I don't have to go ahead and potentially get access to another asset, manage a different asset. If my credentials expire in that other asset, well, guess what? Now I'm locked out of that, but it works on this one. And how do I synchronize my configurations? I have a one-stop shop for everything.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too in the context of like OpenShift, right? Where one of the features of OpenShift is the built-in container registry instead of needing to go reach out to an external source. This can really completely air gap the environment.
I need to double check whether OCI artifacts are fully supported in OpenShift's internal registry. I know for a while it wasn't. It's because a lot of the features around OCI artifacts are newer. The OCI specification 1.1 just got merged in like a month ago. So we're talking hot off the presses. The public registries, the Quays, the Azures, the ECRs are starting to add support for direct, to comply with that standard. I know Azure is probably one of the first ones out there, but quickly I know that they're going to be starting to adopt this implementation and specification.
In which case, I would imagine we won't see it too far behind, but I don't.
Nah, it's at least when it comes to the major providers, no, it's going to be pretty quick. And I am working as part of the tag app delivery artifacts working group within CNCF to be able to kind of promote the usage of OCI artifacts. And we've been tracking the acceptance of these registries for 1.1. I don't know if we have that publicly accessible, but at least we are tracking it within the working group.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this. I think we covered OCI artifacts on this stream sometime last year.
I feel like we did as well.
But I don't remember which episode that was, and it occurs to me
we did one on UOR, the Universal Object Reference, so I think that's probably where we had a chance to have some overlap.
Yes, there was a background on OCI given in that episode.
Yep.
So I think I'll find that link as we talk through other things and pop that into the chat for folks to go get a little bit more of a solid background on what exactly, like, what do we mean when we say OCI? What is the Open Container Initiative? Like, in case you missed it, as Andy said,
by the way.
Yeah, by the way, it's new, but it's not like it's not 1 month new, but it's new in terms of like technology, right? I was just having this conversation with somebody like Golang is the hot new thing. How old is Golang now, though? Greater than 10 years old as a language, right?
I don't know. It's actually about, yes, but I'm looking around and I'm at a Java conference and it's like, yeah, Java's been around for a while if you look at like comparative to like Golang.
Yeah. But so, new is such a it's a term without meaning. It's very relative. It's a very relative term. Yes, exactly.
And the best part about this is I do a lot of work around the security space. So like for the software supply chain, it is just leaning in to where the supply chain ecosystem is. When you think about it, everything from container images to SBOMs to you name it, and image signatures, they're all stored as OCI artifacts within container registries anyways. So we're just leaning into where the ecosystem already is there. And the best part about it is you can reuse a lot of the existing ecosystem for a new purpose. I can sign,
Boom.
I can now sign my new OCI artifacts.
Yeah, that is exciting. Sorry, I had while you were talking, I was able to go get that link. So we have the previous episode linked now to the chat about universal object reference. I do want to acknowledge I do see the question in the chat from the viewer. It is slightly off topic, so we will get to you though. I want to close out our topic, that we're specifically presenting on before we to just generally open questions. So you kind of talked about this already, right? Which is actually, did you talk about this? Limitations of using OCI artifacts. I don't remember if we touched on that yet.
A lot of it comes down to it is somewhat separate, or there's going to be some additional steps that you're going to need to make into your existing CI process. How do you produce the OCI artifact? How do you push it, etc.? Because in most cases, Git may be outside of a CI flow completely. You are just going ahead and publishing to Git, independently, and the content's just there for Argo to accept it. For this, you're mostly going to have some additional processes. We're going to try making the tooling as best as possible, but there's going to be some additional processes that you're going to need to implement to fully make use of this. But the community is going to have some patterns and examples, etc., for you to leverage. So even if you're a novice Argo user, we're going to try to make it as easy as possible.
And so this was a cooler question to ask when we also had Dan and Christian around, because you all three had different answers, and I don't remember their answers. So I can't speak for them, although I would love to try most days. But so you a little bit mentioned it. So how are going forward? Like, what do you think your involvement with this? I know you're also very busy. What do you think your involvement with this looks like going forward? And what do you think the greatest opportunities might be for people to? I mean, we talked about generally getting involved, but what do you think is the number one opportunity for involvement for others who might be interested?
Yeah, I'm still going to, as you can imagine, have a large presence in this moving forward. I can't run the day-to-day. I kind of have a day job that it myself is crazy enough. But I am going to be basically the puppet master, project manager, I guess, over the whole thing, just making sure things are still moving in the right direction. And then working with members of the community who have a little more time to dedicate to this to, kind of lead the implementation. So I have several different work streams, one around the client development, one for the UI, one for the application changes. Try to break it into those four areas, those four pillars that I mentioned earlier, and it makes it easier for us to break down the work. I mean, once again, it looks like a lot of work, but when you break it down and get the community to kind of swarm on it, it's actually going to be pretty achievable.
I would say the hardest part's really at the end of the day, it's going to be the docs.
Yeah,
right?
Docs
it's always the docs. Maybe I'll find some time to help out with the docs.
There you go.
There we
It's
go.
a great way for anyone who is just getting started open source into a project to learn more about the project and to get have their footprint in the project, because guess what? Many users, the docs are all they have.
Yeah. That's very true. As somebody who you and I have discussed this, I've discussed it on the stream before, as somebody who is self-taught, right? And I'm gonna put air quotes around that, because I've had great teammates and mentors over the years who've helped me develop my skill set. But I don't have a college degree, and I've never taken a computer science course, right? Those are some things to know. So for me, developer documentation, open source project documentation is literally the entire backbone of my skill set has come out of documentation. So the quality of those docs has typically mad props to every open source contributor who's ever worked on docs ever, because the quality of those docs are typically very good. So when you're contributing to docs on an open source project, you're literally contributing to people's ability to grow their careers. And I don't think people really realize that that's such an important part about the docs. Like somebody's going to have to upskill on this product for their job, for their career growth, for their personal. Like you literally are. It's not even indirectly. You're directly impacting somebody's like livelihood when you spend your time on docs and contribute to docs. So like, do not undervalue a docs contribution. More important than the code contributions, in my opinion, all day, every day.
Oh, I mean, I ran into an issue today when I was working on another issue, and I was going by, hey, the doc said this, but this isn't necessarily how it's actually working. Why is that not? And it's like, oh, it's really as important as this is why it's important, because if docs aren't correct, expectations are misaligned to the actual feature and functionality of the product or solution project.
Yeah, and that can really like that can cascade. So you can have really great cascading effects by good docs, and then unfortunately like really bad cascading effects by docs that are problematic. But don't be afraid of failure. Contribute to the docs anyway, and then that's why we have the community and the peers and everything to hopefully catch if something's wrong or could be better or whatever. But yes,
exactly.
Docs are good. Contribute to docs, my friends. Okay, so I think, was that my last question on this particular topic? Let me double check my notes here. I'm literally using my cell phone as my because I've got so many things going up on my screens now. I couldn't find another spot on my monitor, and that is sad because I have a 49-inch monitor. So I couldn't find any more spots on my monitors for these questions. So we're doing it from my phone. So I'm like looking down. It's because I'm looking at my phone, which is where I have these questions in a notes document.
At least you have them. That's still good enough.
Yeah. I look distracted. I'm actually focused. It's a terrible situation. That's the remote problem, right? Where you can only see like 2/3 of me. Not even 2/3 of me. But anyway, regardless. Yeah, that actually really does. That actually did. Yeah, round out my questions. With the lack of the entire panel here, like we really went to the whole like time period in Paris, but without the other two people here.
Oh yeah,
we were over. Without the other two people here, it really like shrinks down. So before we move on to the general question, which I'll have to like mentally transition to, by the way, like we're gonna context shift. Are there any questions about OCI, about the proposed project? I guess the real question is, the project's proposed. Is it going? Like, is there a team forming around this?
There is. I'm working with some folks on the Red Hat side who are going to be leading some of the efforts around that. We're going to be sharing some additional information very soon when it comes to the different work streams and creating a number of issues that folks can start to latch on to.
Cool. So this is really like a ground floor thing to get involved in. So if you've been looking for something exciting, this would be one of those exciting things.
Yep, agree.
Very fun. Okay, so I'm going to stop my screen share.
And insert the transition music. The boop, 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 boop,
boop. Okay, so the question was as follows. Do we have any thoughts on Argo CD for cluster bootstrap and configuration instead of using ACM governance?
I have thoughts.
Yeah, go for it, Andrew. What are your thoughts?
I always say use ACM governance to define resources at the hub, at the ACM hub, and then I like the pull model in Argo. So being able to leverage ACM's new pull functionality to be able to seed the remote clusters with the assets, the individual Argos. This goes very much into some of the constraints that I mentioned earlier regarding operating in restricted environments. So you don't have to, as I mentioned, I work in many edge environments, and there's a model called the Purdue model. And that really talks about the different levels of networks between the different environments, whether it be general IT networks, industrial systems, etc. You never go from a higher level environment to a lower level environment. You go from a lower level environment and reach up to the higher level environment. So Argo, if you're running it in a hub and spoke model, won't actually be able to talk to your underlying clusters.
Unsurprisingly, I pretty much exactly agree with your thoughts. The maintaining a secure GitOps environment talk that Christian and I gave in Amsterdam at Argocon, at Argocon a year ago, I exactly said that. Like, hey, guess what? Argo has a pull model. You should be using that one. that's the one. That's the secure one, right? So
Yep.
Unsurprisingly, I don't have any different thoughts than anything that you just said, honestly. And so, Patrick, if you could let us know, does that kind of answer your question? Feel free to expand on the question. I've done some episodes in the past about ACM and Argo, and so I'm just looking for one right now in case you haven't seen it to share. And I'm trying to remember which episode it was because apparently this last time I've done ACM and Argo was a while ago. I bet there's new things that I should probably.
I know there's a lot of enhancements around not only the pull model, but just the integration between Argo. And Marty just went ahead and gave a +1 on the pull model. I know he does.
Oh, you're right when Marty +1s you.
Exactly. You and I know Marty does a lot of work at the edge, and he's put together a lot of like reference architectures for the validated patterns. I know obviously Johnny, talked a lot about the validated patterns quite a bit, and his team. So he has Marty has an entire edge GitOps reference architect, validated pattern that he's put together. So whether he can post it now, we'll make sure that he can at least share the validated pattern for the edge, so we can add that as well.
Yeah, it's been somebody was just actually fun thing. Someone was just asking me, hey, don't you have contacts over in the validated patterns team? And I was like, first of all, yes. But second of all, literally my co-host, guys.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, but he's just, mysteriously not here today.
No, seriously out on some PTO. I can't find the last time I did ACM and GitHub or GitOps. Geez, my brain today is not good, friends. I'll find it and share it on LinkedIn, Patrick, if you happen to follow me.
And I know that Marty has also joined some of the OpenShift Commons to share some of the validated patterns work around Edge GitOps as well. So I'm sure there's also some overlap from our OpenShift Common friends as well.
Yeah, there's definitely some. And then obviously we have Gerald Nunn, who is like
absolutely
the new he is the new Christian over in the Red Hat GitOps space. And I think he's the one who did the last ACM Argo presentation. It wasn't that long ago on my stream. I just can't find the episode for some reason, but I see some things are missing from the playlist, which is an administrative failure on my part. So there you have it.
Oh, it's okay. Don't blame yourself.
I am but a human who makes human mistakes and forgets things sometimes, as humans do. So that's the condition.
And we're not all going to the machines. There's got to be some error, right?
Exactly. It's just whether or not the room for human error is what I call uncomfortable, right? And I think people have heard me say that uncomfortable amount of room for human error. Am I about to forget something really, really important? Not adding an episode to a playlist is I'm comfortable with that room for human error.
Yeah,
if that's the thing I mess up, I've had a great week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't know where that episode is.
We'll post
I
it on the
pull up
show
the validated
notes.
patterns that I know where that stuff is. Like you said, it posted on the show ends. I post things on LinkedIn all the time to follow up on this show. So that's what I'll do. We actually still have. I'm looking at my watch like I don't have a time in front of my face. I don't know what's wrong with me. We actually still have about 20 minutes, but we basically have come to the end of our pre-planned content. I'm comfortable to end the stream early. I know you're at a conference.
It's okay. I'm happy to be able to at least participate here in this as well. I'm going to send you a link, Hillary. I found a blog that Marty put together around Edge GitOps. I think that would be very helpful for our audience to be able to take a look at ask questions later on. So I just sent it over to you on Slack because I can't figure out how to post here. So
you don't have those magic powers. You can send me a private chat and then I can do it. That's how this works. But I have just posted it now. There you go. That is, I'm gonna actually pop it up on the screen in a little ticker. Look at me, I'm so professional with that. So yeah, that is Marty's. Actually, this has been up a while too. This is from April 2022.
22, yeah.
Wow.
So this isn't a new concept, new pattern. It's more of it's a pattern that just needs a little more popularity to it.
Yeah. And it also directs you to the validated patterns multi-cloud GitOps pattern, which is here. We've covered the validated patterns in the past on this stream. I'm going to actually share my screen. Hang on, let me do this. I love talking about validated patterns because
they're great.
I like Marty's comment. The rules of physics haven't changed since April 2022. So boom.
There's multi-cloud GitOps. There's the industrial edge GitOps as well. That's another one that I think is more aligned to the pull model. If you look right below, second one.
These Ansible edge GitOps. I haven't actually seen this one yet. Shame on you, Marty. How have I not seen this one yet? There's a lot here. I'm actually going to go back to the main project page and just pop that into this chat here. Which I think I love how many GitOps things there are just at the top, right? So Ansible Edge GitOps, you have AMX Accelerated Multi-Cloud GitOps, Multi-Cloud GitOps with OpenShift AI. That looks fun.
Yeah.
I haven't been over to this site in a little bit. The medical diagnosis was one of the ones I think we showed off initially. This one's pretty cool. But there's a lot of GitOps here in these validated patterns. It's why I like this project so very much.
Well, I think we're just kind of leaning into the benefit of GitOps and why you want to use GitOps in your OpenShift or even Ansible, deployments and usage.
Yes, absolutely. So hopefully, all validated patterns are GitOps patterns. Ooh, what's emerging disease detection? Use a GitOps approach to manage hybrid cloud deployment. There we go. All validated patterns are GitOps patterns. Proof is in the pudding. We should do more of these. Marty, come on the show. Let's go over some of these with Johnny when he's back.
I'd watch.
Yeah, we should go through some of these. I like how I've just voluntold Marty that he's coming on the show and we're going through more of these again. But he's not objecting, so he must be fine with it. Yeah, see, there we go. That's a done deal. We'll talk. Connected vehicle architecture. This is one. I am not gonna lie, friends. I would rather my car be dumber than it is, and I have a car from 2008. Like, I want a dumber car, less computers. I don't know.
You can find that if you want.
Have you heard of there's like kit cars, and like you can basically build a car from the ground up, like similar to like a 1960s hot rod or something like that.
I don't even have a car, so.
Do you even have a driver's license?
I do, and it's out of date. Oh, actually, it's valid, but it's from a state I haven't lived in almost 20 years.
So no. We're gonna
no.
Functionally, no.
I can still get on airplanes with it, so it's functional for me.
There you go. That's all you need. I live in California where we don't have the Chicago level of public transit, so I do have to drive. And I would like to not have to drive. That would be great. How can I get up my commute? I can't. Well, that's not that bad. My commute is from like behind my room divider. I work from home, but I have to take the kids to and from school sometimes, and that's a drive.
Yep.
Okay. You know what? At this point, I could spend the next 15 minutes just like combing through validated patterns. I'm not going to do that. That'll be boring for everybody but me. We'll arrange for Marty to come on and give us a cool overview, and maybe we can get some demos or something. Like I said, I think happy to end this stream early because without Christian and Dan giving their additional like talks about how they're involved in this OCI project, which I don't remember their involvement. I'm the worst friend ever. I'm sorry, guys. They
were the ones that fact checked me half the time. Does this actually make sense? Am I talking out of my butt?
What I like about those guys is that they will give it to you real straight. Both of them are real straight shooters. So I like that. I like that about them because if the answer to that question is yes, you're going to know it right quick. But if the answer to that is, well, maybe, then that's where you start. I'm sure you had these conversations. I've had many of these conversations with Christian. When you get to the, well, maybe, and then you spend like the next 30 minutes, hour
Down
and
the
a
rabbit
half
hole you go.
down the rabbit hole. And sometimes then you find a different rabbit hole and you've branched completely and you never actually answered that first question and maybe you don't need it anymore.
Well, that's why you always either give yourself some breadcrumbs or a rope to remember where you came from. Because I've gone down that, especially when it comes to just typical Git, or not Git, but just implementation of some sort. And I can't tell you the amount of time that I've gone ahead and tried changing something. I'm like, oh crap, how do I go ahead and get back to where I was? I always go ahead and either make a commit, start a new branch, and just say, okay, I've gone only so far. I'll go back.
Yep, I do that a lot. The real key is to make sure you do that the moment you try to recognize your rabbit hole before you hit it. I have a very funny story. A few years ago, I made a PR to a repo, and all I did was I was a minor refactor of some code, but I'd never touched the code base before. So locally, I added a bunch more debugging, and actually like something that I was even thinking about potentially like proposing to the full upstream because it was like a slightly better debugger, like a little bit more usefulness on the unit testing and so forth. But so it was I had to bump some dependencies, so I needed to run all of the unit tests.
Yep.
I needed to make sure I understood them, so I did this whole thing, and I accidentally did one commit too soon on the branch that I was working on before I remembered to branch and then finish off the additional like unit testing framework and debugging and everything that I used to make sure that I had confidence in my PR, because bumping dependencies is scary. Because you don't really, especially in a repo you don't know how many places those dependencies are used, right? And it was needed to bump the Golang version 2. I had to bump it 2 because there was in 1.16 there was a JSON package with an error, so I had to bump to 1.7. And like that was all like such a minor PR, like three bumps, but one of them was the full Golang bump. So I did all this thing. So I put up the PR, and one of the reviews is like, "What is this?" And like, nothing to see. Like, go and I pulled it off.
Well, that's
like,
why I'm
nothing to see here.
It's always hard because it's like, okay, you've been working on a feature, and you're like, is anyone going to laugh at me if I try proposing this? Is it ready?
It's exactly, and like I said, so especially when it was like a repo that I didn't had no previous contributions to, really didn't technically have any. It's an internal Red Hat repo, so it's not like I had no business looking at it because I was a user of the thing, but no previous like contribution history. Nobody asked me to do anything. I just happened to be there, right?
Yep.
And so for me to, 1, refactor that piece of code, 2, bump some dependencies, including the Golang, actually that PR went stale before people could agree on the dependency versions and everything else like that. But whatever. I tried.
You just brought up a good use case of, contributing to open source. Don't think that everyone, don't say, I don't want to commit. I don't want to go ahead and contribute because everyone's going to laugh at me. I don't know what I'm doing. Just get your voice out there. No one's going to laugh at you. They're not. They're going to say, hey, does something already exist? They'll just point you saying, hey, you look over here, it might be able to be solved this way, or this is a great feature. Why didn't we think of this? You're a genius.
Yeah, it's not going to be. It's always scary, but it's not going to be bad, and it's completely reasonable to just start with something minor. And the reason that PR went stale was simply due to people's overall busyness. Ultimately, the same things that I was attempting to do got done in other subsequent PRs after. I also wasn't a great contributor because I kind of dropped it and then ran.
That happens too.
It was minor, and I was like, they'll take it or they won't. I tried, right? So I dropped it and ran. But yeah, it's that's basically the point. Is the rabbit hole story is before I like ran, there was an initial, hey, what is this new dependency you've just introduced?
Right.
And it was one of my rabbit hole dependencies, which I do the same thing you do. I leave breadcrumbs. I commit often. I commit broken code. I branch frequently, and so I can always get back to a sane state. Locally, I don't do I clean up those branches later. Like it's all a mess locally if you expand all that.
Going through a pull request, I have learned so much about Git because either I have to do rebasing because something upstream changed. I need to cherry pick. I don't know if any people actually.
Oh, I had to cherry pick recently for a hotfix. It was terrible.
Exactly.
And also one of the things, like somebody was just saying, he's like, today I learned on Git. So he cherry picked off, and he thought it was going to bring in all the commits from like the source.
Yep.
It actually just brought in the most recent commit off of that. He's like, oh, I have to go and cherry pick each individually. Okay, I didn't know that. You always learn something new at some point. Cherry picks are just awful.
Exactly.
Oh, the XC project had a consistent contributor. Look what happened there. Excellent point. Really excellent point. Yeah.
A little on the point there, yeah.
Yeah. So dropping and run isn't necessarily the worst thing you can do. That's for sure. But yeah, no, and so leave yourself breadcrumbs. Agreed. Be careful. Try to recognize your rabbit hole before you start your breadcrumbs, though, because otherwise your breadcrumbs end up in your PR, and someone like, "What is this dependency?" And you're like, "Shh, nothing. It's fine. This is fine." And then you have to go through that whole process of deleting and updating your PR and all that other stuff, which is not as bad as a cherry pick, I will grant you, but still not fun.
I mean, GitHub makes it easier now to synchronize your forks and your repositories, because before you had to go ahead and manually go ahead and synchronize everything. Now there's a nice button now.
I love that button. I love that button so much. They made that button, and I was like, oh my God. Because sometimes I would leave things for so long, the only way to get synchronized was to go scorched earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is a terrible experience, is having to go scorched earth and being like, I can't even I would just rename what I originally had and move it. And that with an MV, I'd just be like, move this to over here. It's some other thing now, reclone. And then if there was something I needed, then there was some, bash foo I could do to bring that over. None of it's fun. None of it's fun. But that magic rebase button on my fork, I use that multiple times a week. That is my favorite thing in GitHub right now.
Yep.
All right. Well, I keep saying we were going to end early and then not ending early, but I think this time we're really going to end early. It's only 8 minutes.
We got 8 minutes. Gives everyone to maybe make a restroom break before their next meeting, or just get a bite to eat. It's getting lunchtime over in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, just about. It's 11. Really more of a brunch, so that means that I can justify pancakes right now if I wanted to.
Or we look towards Denver. It's Mountain Time, where Summit's going to be next month. So if you're definitely into joining us at Red Hat Summit, I know many folks are going to be there from the Red Hat's team. Oh
yeah, there will be the product manager for Azure Red Hat OpenShift, which is the project I work on now. He's going to be there. So if folks are there, go harass him and say hello for me. Tell him that Hillary sent you via her live stream. That will really be a delight for me, because he has sent people to find me at KubeCons.
There you go.
and then that's a little fun game.
Now the question is, do you get a referral bonus or something if he says, "Hey, I got these guys who end up pinging me and reaching out"? How you get all these people who are like, "Hey, make sure to mention my code so I can get it if you want to sign up for this product."
No, I'm just in engineering. That's the thing. I'm just in engineering. I don't get anything.
Yep.
Yeah. But either way, go if you're gonna be at Summit. Send pictures also, because I will not be at Summit, nor have I been to a Summit yet. So someday I will get an invite to a Red Hat Summit, but it's not this year.
You'll get there, I promise.
If Andy promises, it's probably going to come true. That's for sure. All right. Well, I will. I'm still working out what our next episode is in 2 weeks. It actually may be in 3 weeks, because I'm coordinating with the guests for the topic. So I'll update on that, as I usually do, on LinkedIn, very last minute. I really have my life together as a host of this stream, you can tell. Until then, friends, I will remind you to choose your technical debt wisely, and I'll see you in 2 or 3-ish weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.